could I introduce the lead heterosexual couple, Tom Freeman and Catherine Doyle, who are going to say a few words.
I don't want to repeat anything that Robert and Peter has said, so I'm just going to give it from our perspective. This is Tom and I'm Catherine, and we've been together for about 5 years, and we want a civil partnership. Last year we started talking about whether we should get married, and we came across two issues which sort of stopped us in our tracks and why we're here today. The first issue was the, to us, obvious inequality between marriage and civil partnership. Could we, with any conscience, get married when there are other couples who can't because of their sexuality? That just didn't seem fair to us. And the second reason was whether marriage was right for us personally. I think in our day-to-day life, we feel like civil partners. We don't feel like husband and wife. And we'd like the government to recognise that. We don't think we're asking for anything outlandish. If we lived in South Africa or the Netherlands or Quebec, we could have access to a non-marriage registration scheme. So why can't we have it in this country? So what we hope to bring about is equal love in the UK.
Okay. Thank you. And Reverend Sharon Ferguson and Frank Estreta.
Yeah, this is a real issue for us. We really appreciate the civil partnerships, and we think this was such an important part of legislation because it brought in protection for gay couples where there hadn't been any before. And as a pastor, I had spent an awful lot of time with gay couples, and when they were preparing to have a blessing and to mark their relationship. And so much of that time, instead of counselling them on their relationship, was spent on counselling them about having to get power of attorney set up and to get their wills written, because they didn't have that protection. And so I really welcomed the civil partnerships, and I think that's a really important thing. But particularly because of my Christian faith, it's marriage that I want. Frank and I have been together for about 2.5 years now, and we've started talking about 6 months ago about formalising our commitment. And it was never a question for us that we would enter into a civil partnership, because that isn't what our relationship is about. As Christians, we believe in the sanctity of marriage, and that this is a God-given institution, if you like, and therefore that's the only institution that we want to be part of. That doesn't mean that we think that civil partnerships are not honoured and not valued, and we think it's also wonderful that couples like Tom and Kathy are looking to enter into civil partnerships. But there should be the opportunity for people to choose, not told that we can only do one thing or the other, and that we're limited because of our sexual orientation. We should have the right to choose to be married if that's what we want, the same as Tom and Katie should have the right to have a civil partnership.
Okay, well that sums up the Equal Love campaign. Do any of you have questions?
At the risk of exaggerating, I'm a little surprised when I mentioned the word apartheid. This is what it reminds me of. I grew up under, you went through separate doors. This is what this is like, seems to me.
Yeah, I think we see the twin bans on same-sex civil marriage and opposite-sex civil partnerships as a form of sexual apartheid. Mm-hmm. One law for homosexual couples, another law for heterosexual couples. If the government had banned black people from having a civil marriage and offered them civil partnerships instead, we would call it apartheid. We'd call it a racist system. So, we think that it's time there was one law for everyone, that we were all equal before the law, and that both systems were open up to all couples of all sexual orientations.
Seems South Africa's got ahead of it because of that experience.
Do you think, is it not an obstacle to this campaign, though, that there is, in fact, effectively no difference between civil partnership and marriage, except the name, which maybe stops people from getting behind it, because most people in Britain see, civil partnerships as a sort of acceptable solution to a socially divisive issue?
In some respects, it is seen as the same, but not in all. I mean, if you think about it, most often when you actually talk about having a civil partnership, people start talking about that you're getting married, because this is the language that people understand. We don't have a language around civil partnerships. You know, socially and culturally, we only understand marriage. Marriage is the institution that people have come to know and to accept. And so there is automatically that divide. The other thing you have to bear in mind is that as soon as, because of the division, as soon as you say you're having a civil partnership, you're outing yourself. Because only gay people can have a civil partnership. And so therefore, you know, and it's the same the other way around. As soon as you say that you're getting married, then everybody knows, oh, you must be straight, because you can't possibly be anything else. And so automatically, it makes us go into little boxes. It divides us, it separates us. And so it's not the same. You know, and this is why we say it should be available to everybody. Both institutions should be available to everybody. And then that would be equal.
I think it's also worth adding that there are some small discrepancies in pension inheritance depending on when the deceased partner began paying into their pension. So there are some discrepancies there. In addition, civil partnerships are recognised in virtually nowhere else in the world, whereas marriages aren't. So if a same-sex couple goes abroad on holiday or to live permanently, they will find that suddenly their civil partnership has no validity at all. Whereas if they had a civil marriage, at least that marriage would be recognised in the other 10 other countries that currently recognise same-sex marriages.
If I could add, separate is not equal, and words do matter. This has been recognized by several courts in the US. If I could give an illustration, if we said that men in universities can have the title professor and women get the title senior teacher with all the same benefits, or in the judicial system, men are called judges, women are called senior legal analysts. That's the difference between marriage and civil partnership.
Got a couple of questions for Tom and Catherine. John from the BBC News website. You mentioned when you were talking before that you felt in your day-to-day relationship like civil partnerships rather than you were heading towards marriage. I'm just wondering what you meant by that. And secondly, you know, I'm just trying to draw above and beyond the fight for equality. What's in it for heterosexual couples? What are the? I mean, we know about, as Peter mentioned, discrepancies between inheritance rates. But what's actually in it for a heterosexual couple?
I think your first question, the titles of husband and wife, and all the imagery that pops into people's heads when you say you're getting married, it doesn't appeal to us. I mean, we know that marriage ceremonies today can come in all shapes and sizes, but it doesn't appeal to us. And if civil partnership didn't exist, we would be a couple who just chose not to get married. The fact that it does exist means that there is an alternative for us, and we can feel enfranchised along with other couples, straight couples who feel that marriage is not for them. Civil partnership itself, there's nothing in it that attracts us. It's because it's an alternative to marriage. It's because it's not marriage that we wanted, I think. Does that answer your question?
That does, yeah. Thanks for
Anything to add?
It is also because we don't want to become part of a system that perpetuates segregation. We just don't want to sort of involve ourselves with this segregationist situation where you've got one law for gay people and one law for straight people. We want to stand up against that.
I mean,
have our relationship recognised under provisions that recognise the fact that love is just love, and there's not straight love and then gay love, which is, you know, something qualitatively different. You know, it's all the same thing. We don't want to endorse any system that says otherwise.